Starting a business is not easy, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Getting noticed and signing your first client while in a full-time job, making enough to justify taking a leap of faith, dealing with everyday uncertainty, and oftentimes feeling like an imposter. This is the story of how in 2019 I planned to start my first business, ended up doing so, but none of it happened as I expected. If you're thinking about getting started or are already on your way, welcome to the YoussTube. This is my personal channel where I'm sharing with you the highs, lows, and the behind the scenes of being a six-figure agency founder turned SaaS founder. So you can learn from my mistakes and all the things I'm learning along the way. So I remember that in 2019, I started the year with the idea of becoming an entrepreneur. I was like, I don't want to end up my year without being an entrepreneur. And the way I planned it is I thought, okay, I have 12 months ahead of me. I still have a full-time job. Let me save up each month so that I have a bit of a runway in case things go sour. But also throughout the year, I'm not going to wait until the end of the year to start potentially finding clients, but I will spread the word and see what comes back at me. With a bit more context, every year since I'm a teenager, I always have this kind of guiding word that follows me throughout my year. In 2019, it was creativity. So that was really matching with my desire of becoming an entrepreneur. So things were planned, but obviously not everything happened just as planned. And I've had quite a few notes that I want to share with you on this video because it really matters to when you're starting, how you plan things, how things plan out, and what you do in between. So as I had my full-time job, I was thinking, okay, on the side of my full-time job, I'm going to spread the word with what I can do. My background is in business development. I started my career working as a salesperson at Google as well as Amazon. I had then joined one of the largest startup conferences called Web Summit for quite a few years. And then when I moved to Hong Kong, I was working at a startup accelerator called Nest and Meta to help other founders, but also innovations teams and large corporates to innovate with new technologies. So my background being in sales, I kind of knew how I could position myself and sell, but also needed something to sell. I had expertise in design thinking. So design thinking is a problem-solving methodology that a lot of product teams and innovations teams use to either create new products, but also enhance existing ones. A lot of the things that you're using actually have come through a design thinking process. I mean, you can Google it and we can make a separate video about it, but that's not the point of the video right now. Quite a few notes to follow through the entire story. The idea is, okay, I am commercializing design thinking as a workshop to help innovations team create new products or enhance new ones. This is something that I was doing also in my full-time job. So I kind of was taking it as a segue to do it on my own. If I can sign deals for my existing company, I could potentially do that for myself as well. But if I put myself a 12 months timeline to find clients, this would be a very good way to validate this idea and take the leap of faith. So what I did is on the side of my job, I was talking to potential prospects. I was thinking the more I talk to prospects, the more likely or the higher the likelihood I would get something in return. So fast forward 6 months, it took me until June to finally hear back from a potential project. That was pretty amazing. I mean, I was talking to a lot of people. I can't even count, like it was probably in the hundreds. And a friend of mine knew a project owner at a university in Hong Kong who needed exactly a design thinking facilitator to contract for a specific 3-day project. So since he knew I was getting started in this, he gave me this opportunity as a deal maker in a way to be in between the university and myself as a contractor to join this project. You gotta remember that at that time, I was just spreading the word. I had no business, so no website, no bank account, no business entity, no logo, not even a name. I just had a skill set that I knew I would want to commercialize. And before creating all of these things that just show something, but don't necessarily validate an idea, I thought I need to close a deal in order to validate this and get to the next step. So that was really the first part. And this contract was the value of 2 months' salary in just 3 days. So I was like, whoa, there's actually a real potential here. So if I can do this for myself repeatedly, that would be quite a viable business. So once I signed this contract and I delivered it, it was a success. I mean, the client was super happy and I was really stoked. So what happened next is I took a decision to take 2 weeks break in Bali at the end of August, which is just after my birthday. Just for your note, my birthday is on August 14th. So if you want to take note of that, just keep it in mind. But coming back to this, I took 2 weeks off to focus specifically on building the stuff that I didn't do before, which was website, collaterals, logos, even like my name and actually buying the domain name for the business. And if you want to segue on the story of the name, it's funny because after I finished this project, I was thinking, okay, with this design thinking approach and also my sales background, everything I'm doing is about helping businesses to scale. I woke up Monday thinking, okay, this is kind of like an innovation. You can imagine a lab, and I'm helping companies to scale. So it came together as being the Scalelab. Really amazing. I was very happy to find this name, which resonates still with me. I mean, the agency is still around today, doing very different things than when I started it, but we'll come to that in the next episode. So I was in Bali for 2 weeks, and you can imagine, I mean, it's only 4 hours away from Hong Kong. It's also a lot cheaper, but the idea was to get there, to not be surrounded with my friends and any temptations to, go out or even work or else, but I needed to just to focus, like a hermit in a way. I was going to the beach in the morning, so either surfing or swimming, sometimes doing yoga instead, just like freeing up the headspace, going to a co-working space and just working nonstop on my website, collaterals and all. I did that for 2 weeks straight. And in 2 weeks, I was also contacting potential other prospects with whom I had conversations before, because you can imagine that was in August. So there was 8 months in my year in my planning. This all happened. I was very happy with it. And when I flew back to Hong Kong, I took one of those red eye flights where I basically flew through the night to land in Hong Kong at about 9 a.m. and go straight to work. I mean, yeah, I know I wouldn't probably do that again today, but the idea at the time was to maximize my time in Bali because I had only worked, and I wanted to spend this Sunday to feel, okay, I've achieved something. It took me 2 weeks. It was quite intense to do all of that. AI didn't exist at the time as well, so I was doing all of it manually, really. But the story really begins now when I land back from Bali to Hong Kong. So I land, and the first thing I do is, of course, I turn on my phone while I'm on the airplane, and I see notifications on WhatsApp from colleagues saying, hey, Youssef, did you also get a message from the CEO? Hey, did you get a message from the CEO? Did you also get a message from the CEO? Like 3 or 4 messages like this. I was like, okay, something's odd here. A few minutes later, I get a Slack message from our CEO asking, hey, Youssef, do you have a few minutes for a quick chat this afternoon? And I'm like, okay, something pretty bad is happening here. Because if there is like a good news, usually it's also shared throughout the company at the same time. But for any bad news, usually you get that on a one-on-one. And especially if everybody receives the same message, something sour is about to happen. In terms of context, I mean, the company was not doing so well. Business was basically going down, and we could see it. We could also feel it. The contextual time in Hong Kong during protests in 2019 didn't help the business. But I mean, this is not a political stand here. It's more about what happened. I just landed in Hong Kong. I go to my office, I meet with my colleagues, and right away we go each to meet with our CEO. And without much surprise, we all got laid off because the business was shutting down. Before flying from Bali, one of my major concerns was that since I was doing something similar to the company I was still working for, I would be in a competition dilemma with the business. So I had to find an excuse to actually go down that route and not have any issue with my business who would potentially sue me, or I don't know, if I was stealing some of their clients, there probably would have been an issue. But I thought, okay, I'm stoked. I did the first contract. That's good. I did it on my own. It's something I can sustain as well. But I had 4 months left, so from August to December, to not only save more revenue, so just to be able to make sure that I can sustain myself when I jump the cliff, and also I had to find an excuse. So 4 months to find an excuse for me was enough. But I thought, okay, I'd be creative. Now, all what happened is I land in Hong Kong, I get let go, the business shuts down, so that means I have no more competition. But another problem actually arises here. So my visa, I'm not a Hong Kong resident. I was not a Hong Kong resident at the time. I am right now. I have a permanent residency. But what happened at the time is my visa was expiring only 3 weeks after I got let go. So visa expiring meant I had no chance with no company yet registered. I didn't have enough income to justify sort of entrepreneur or investor visa. This was like far from what I could even be doing. So I had to convince my current company to renew the visa, at least to give me some runway to be able to then create my own admin and sustain myself under my own visa. But 3 weeks was too short to find even anybody else to sponsor me. Luckily, they agreed to do that, and all of it happened at the same time. One more thing that was really cool at that time, super serendipitous. I think, when you give yourself a chance to really follow through, and I say even listen to your heart internally, sometimes some doors open without even you knowing it. My parents were also planning to come to Hong Kong at the end of September. So I had told them, okay, you're going to come to Hong Kong, but I'll be working at that time. So I can give you a plan to do stuff during the day, and we'll meet in the evenings. But now, since the company was shutting down, that was amazing. I also had time to spend time with my parents. And I also took them after a week in Hong Kong to Bali, and they both loved it. They really loved Hong Kong. They really loved Bali. And in fact, now we're in 2025. They actually came to Hong Kong again early 2025 and they loved it again. I mean, no surprise, I've been here for 7 years and it's a pretty amazing place. Other video about this topic though. I'm gonna look through my notes because there's just so much I want to cover with you on this. Yeah, so I got laid off. My visa was expiring in 3 weeks and I had literally no income left. So at this stage, I was like, okay, I literally just created my websites, my collaterals, my decks. I had my logo, everything ready. I had restarted the conversations I had started since the start of the year. So now I literally had no choice but finding new clients. And the switch was I wasn't a 9 to 5, so I didn't have that much time to actually work on my side business. And this is why it took maybe a certain amount of time, the 6 months to get to the first client, which validated the business and gave me the desire to really get started and the validation to really do it. Once I did this, okay, I was hoping to get 4 more months of income, which I could save just to have even more time. But right now, yeah, that was cut and I had just 4 months to figure out what I would do. No more savings, only the choice to sign new clients. So because I have a sales background, I really followed through all of the stuff that I knew. I put up automations. At the time, automations was not really a thing that people knew about. And I'm talking about sales automations. So, sending automatic LinkedIn connections or emails. This was something that only a few knew how to handle. And that really helped me to reconnect with some of my prospects, find new ones, and eventually land a much bigger deal, which I had to do with a contractor, which was actually a good friend of mine. So that was a 1 week's deal, but the value of that deal was probably half a year's salary in most countries in the world. So I was like, okay, this is the second validation. This is pretty amazing. This contract happened in November. So that was 2 months after me being let go in the company. It probably sounds easy, but I was really afraid of not being able to do that because the contract that I had signed back in June was definitely not enough to sustain myself over the time of December. So this gave me another 6 months to really figure out, okay, where else can I find new clients? And so since in November I signed this new client, I was really stoked. I was like, okay, I have a second validation. My plan of getting started and becoming an entrepreneur is real. I had planned to resign from my company back in December, but it just happened. They did it for me in September and I had just no choice to continue and get started with what I was doing. But at the time, since I had signed my second and bigger client, the deal was 3 times the value of the first one I had signed. I was like, okay, I covered pretty much a lot of Hong Kong and I will still do more of it. But for the first quarter of 2020, what I need to do is to go to other major cities in Asia, so Bangkok, Ho Chi Minh, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and others, just to plant some seeds, just as I did the previous year in Hong Kong while still having a full-time job. But this time I will do it full-time just for myself. Planting my seeds in Southeast Asia, then coming back to Hong Kong on and off. That would be the dream of living the remote life, being able to work from where I want and developing a presence all over Asia. But of course, this is not what happened because you probably remember this is also when everybody started talking about this thing called COVID. Everything I built was about to crumble. The world was shutting down and I had no idea if my business would even survive. But this is where the real story begins. How do you keep going when everything falls apart? Which is exactly what I'm going to share with you in the next video.